Good evening, you fantastic and glorious degenerates of this floating rock that we call Earth. Welcome to Off the Wire, and as always, I am your host, Noel Olin, aka the Cajun Libertarian. And tonight we have an extraordinary guest on. As always, this show produces nothing but amazing guests, and Adam B. Coleman is at the tippy top of that list. Real quick, something I rarely do, but I'm going to do it tonight. I want to give you a brief rundown of his pedigree before we kick off the show, just so that you understand and know to at least some degree who it is and the level of intelligence that we're talking to tonight in Adam B. Coleman. Adam B. Coleman is the author of Black Victim to Black Victor. He's an op-ed writer, public speaker, and the founder of Wrong Speak Publishing. Adam is a columnist for Human Events, a frequent contributor for the New York Post, and has articles published in Newsweek, The Federalist, The Epoch Times, Daily Mail, The Post Millennial, Unheard, Scoon TV, Free Black Thought, Life, News, Headquarters, and Human Defense Initiative. If that wasn't enough, let's top it off with he has also appeared on Fox News, Talk TV, Fox Business, Newsmax, The Hills Rising, Skies News, Australia, and numerous podcasts, of which he can add this one to the list of his pedigree now. And so, this is going to be a fantastic episode. This is going to be a very enlightened for your soul and your informatively enriched episode, because we have somebody that is very well versed, as the pedigree has just laid out. It's going to be a great show. Next on Off the Wire. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you for joining us on a very incredible and important episode of Off the Wire with me, your host, Noel Olin, aka the Cajun Libertarian. Before we get started and bring Adam on, let's get to our sponsors of the show. Our first one up is dsYDO.com. I fully admit that I have screwed that up on the screen there, but you get the point. DSYDO. DSYDO is a libertarian-owned t-shirt company and also sweaters, hoodies. They have a variety of things. Go check them out. It's amazing. With designs intended to start a conversation, use code Cajun15. That's CAJUN15, Cajun15 for 15% off your order at disdo.com. That's DSYDO.com. DSYDO.com. You can get spicy shirts like the one I'm wearing now that says safe and expected is now unexpected and not safe. Let me read it verbatim here. Safe and effective is now sudden and unexpected. And so use your code Cajun15 at dsYDO.com to get your spicy shirts and your spicy wife beaters and your spicy everything. Do it now. Cajun15, dsYDO.com. Also, youarethepower.net. Thank you, Spike Cohen, and youarethepower.net for sponsoring the show. Here's a video.
The game plan of You Are the Power is pretty simple. We find people who are being harmed or abused or neglected or mistreated by their local governments. And this is my life's work. We want to help people.
This is something that has already began to affect real change. This isn't some distant, futuristic, utopic or utopian dream. It's already happening. It's making its course. It's making waves right now as we speak.
If you want to learn how to become an effective activist and then to do actual activism and actually help people now, not wait for, like you said, some distant utopian future where libertarians take over the world and leave everyone alone. If you want to do that now, that's what we're doing. This next year is going to be the year that people see what liberty actually looks like. Not what it sounds like, not what our philosophy is, but what the actual results and idea, what the solutions behind what we do. So that's what I'm doing with You Are the Power. I would love for you to be a part of it. youarethepower.net. We'd love for you to become a member. And this is my life's work.
Absolutely. youarethepower.net. And of course, yes, that is me, yours truly, in that sponsored ad promo for youarethepower.net, which is a nonprofit organization with Spike Cohen at the head. Please go sign up. It's free. You'll get every update of what's happening and what's going on in that fight for our American liberty, our American freedom, and what we're trying to desperately push forward and to conserve. If I'm allowed to use that word in libertarian circles, I'm sorry. Yes, I want to conserve American liberty and American freedom, at least to some point of what we used to have pre-COVID and beyond. With that being said, let's bring on our main guest, our main person of the hour, the very accredited, very intellectual, very esteemed man of the hour, Adam B. Coleman. Adam,
Hey,
how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
No, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show. I know you're a very, very busy man. You're making a lot of waves. You're doing a lot of things in the very forward and positive movement of what we call this country, America. Let me start off by asking you this. What is it? And we'll get into the finer details of this in the nuance, but what is it, primarily that drove you into the arena of having this desire and this passion to change the political landscape within America?
By feeling like I wasn't able to say what I really wanted to say. That's what started for me to write my book right behind me. It came after George Floyd, and for me, I wasn't active on social media or anything like that, but I'm an observant kind of person, so I'm watching and listening, and I had so many things that I wanted to say that were in complete disagreement of the world around me. I'm watching people having panic attacks and making narratives, the media framing my existence as a Black male as one of fear and constant danger. And obviously they never talk about class and the impact of class. I'm watching these, multimillionaire basketball players who are crying and acting like, they're next with the knee on their neck, so it's just like, I'm watching all these things. And at the same time, I felt like I couldn't say what I really wanted to say. It wasn't until I started getting in like free speech circles where I started to ask the question, like, am I the only one who feels this way? And it was comforting to hear other people say, no, you're not. And other people were in similar situations. And that was basically the start for me to write my book. It took me about 9 months. I self-published it.
Wow.
I had no public profile. I didn't even really use social media. I had a Facebook account, but I barely touched it. And from there, that was in March, at the end of March 2021. So everything that you've seen has happened since then.
Wow. Nice. Let me get this comment real quick. I usually save them for last, but this is a really good one. Logic Rex. Okay. I think last time I saw Adam up was on the Sharp Way with Larry Sharp, who I've had on the show multiple times. I'm not sure how many times I've had him on, but multiple times. Good to see him back up there. So you are obviously not somebody who is underground. You're obviously somebody who is within our libertarian or anarchist or just, basic liberty circles. And so it's glad to see. I am glad to see personally. I am glad to see that you're not undiscovered in this arena. So let me jump to this. Let me jump to this next question because you and I have been talking back and forth several
Mhm.
times, and one of the things that uh, I discovered on your Substack, which I'm right now trying to put up. It is adambcoleman.substack.com. Please go subscribe. I'm going to ask you, by the way, several times, Adam, to promote your everything that you want promoted to help you out because I think you're such an amazing voice just from what I've seen on Twitter, right? You and I have never spoken before tonight, but just from what I've seen on Twitter, I think you're making great strides. So I want to
Thank
ask you
you.
this. Yeah, you're very welcome. No, thank you for what you're doing. You have almost 100,000 followers on Twitter. You're making massive waves. But I want to continue this theme of kind of diving into why you've decided to do what you've done and make the decisions that you've made. Uh,
Mhm.
I was a red. I'm sorry. I was red. This is a quote. I was red pilled by a British conservative. Now this is an end quote. Now this is a red pill, blue pill. For those of you that are listening that don't understand, that is not a Democrat Republican thing. Red pill, blue pill is a matrix reference, meaning if you took the blue pill, you stayed asleep. If you took the red pill, you became awake, right?
Mhm.
That's the Matrix reference. So, can you give us a brief rundown of how that happened with you?
Yeah. You know, I, I I call it coincidence. I call it maybe something that was supposed to happen in my life. But I was traveling abroad. I started traveling abroad a number of years ago, bouncing around Europe multiple times, and I made it to Madrid. Um, and I ended up going to an English pub to watch my favorite team play, which is Chelsea, for any soccer fans. Um, so I was watching Chelsea play. They finished the game, and I was ready to leave, and then all of a sudden it was torrential downpour. Just all of a sudden, I you know I'm far away from my hostel. And, I got no umbrella, so I was like, screw it, I'll just stay and watch another game. So I stayed, and the next game was Manchester City, and I decided to just sit next to this couple that was there, and the guy was English, and his girlfriend, she was Spanish, and he had been living in the Madrid area for a number of years. He was originally from Manchester, but we were just talking, just randomly about all types of stuff, comedy and movies and stuff like that. And really nice guy. And so anytime I meet people while I'm abroad, I exchange information with them. And almost immediately when I made it back home, we were basically talking every day, football and all types of stuff. But one day, he told me that he was for Brexit. For people who are familiar, it's about England pulling out of the EU.
Yep.
And so I thought that was interesting because the narrative that I heard was Brexit is being perpetuated by these racist British people who don't like foreigners and all this other stuff. So I asked him, well, because I had good faith in him. He's been nothing but cordial to me. So I asked him, well, why are you for this? And he said to me, the United States would never allow an outside governing body to tell it what to do. And I'm like, yep, that's absolutely correct. That makes a lot of sense. And and that was the first time I had ever heard that argument, like that side of the Brexit conversation.
Wow.
And so from there, we just started talking, and we actually went on like binges, with audiobooks and stuff like that. And he actually introduced me to Thomas Sowell. I never heard of Thomas Sowell prior to meeting
Oh
him.
wow.
Um, and Milton Friedman and all these different characters, and swapping ideas and listening to podcasts. So I was kind of sort of doing that prior, but he set it to like a whole other level and had me really question things. Um, And so, you know, that's why I say he helped to red pill me, but it was a chance encounter because, um, you know, I'm also a fan of Real Madrid. And anytime I go to a city and I could try to see a game, I'll go to the game. And I could have sworn they weren't going to be playing at home. And turns out they were.
Hmm.
And then, you know, I went to go watch them play at some other place, and then I saw Chelsea was playing shortly after. So then I went to another English pub, and I was in there, and for whatever reason I was like, nah, this doesn't feel right, and I left and went to another one. So I had all these little things that could have happened to lead me to not meeting him in the first place. And to kind of cap it off, I was able to meet up with him. Uh, Basically, since then, I hadn't seen him in person. But my wife and I went to Madrid this past September for our 1 year anniversary, and we met up with him and his fiance. And she's literally like a week away from giving birth, you know, the big belly and everything. But we went out and had a great time, had some Indian food, and it was great to see him. And we're planning on meeting up again in a different place, maybe later this year.
That's awesome. That's a
Yeah.
great story. I mean, that's like one of the maybe one of the most rare stories that you're going to hear about somebody wind up waking up to the system being completely corrupt, both left, right,
Mhm.
in the middle. Excuse me. And so I would love to hear more about that story privately. But right now, while we're on air, let's dive into kind of what you've been going really just full frontal on, and it's something that I've adopted. Uh, I guess adopted is probably a misrepresentation of the vernacular that I choose to
Mhm.
use. And so, what I would rather say is something I've been promoting, something that I've been dealing with for quite a while. I'm a brand new podcaster. It's about a year and a half now that I've been doing this, closing in on 2 years, but still one of the biggest podcasts in the world for some reason. I have no idea why. However, um, something that I've been hammering quite frequently everywhere is that the destruction of our society will come at the hands of a fatherless society. And this is something that I'm huge on. And I got a lot of pushback from a lot of women, and rightfully so. I get it. Like I didn't provide the nuance. And they're like, oh no, it's women too. And I'm saying, I get that, but I'm literally telling you that the focus should be on fathers raising boys. That's a You look at are the women shooting up? I think we talked about this already. Yeah. Are the women shooting up the schools? No. Are the women uh, destroying society from violent crime? No. It's all men, or it's all males. Shouldn't say men because they're not men. Anybody that's doing these acts of violence are just ignorant boys with violent tendency. They are not men because men don't act like this. But the underlying difference, and this is regardless of race factor, anything of that nature, it is always fatherless homes. This affects every single society or every single demographic within society. And
Mhm.
so you have been absolutely on the ball with this. This is something that's your major deal. It's a major deal of mine. Anybody that's been following me, and a lot of you that have been listening to the show for the close to 2 years now, you understand and you know that this is something that I've been harping on personally, and that one of the prime, if not the primary destructive factor in American society, in any society around the world, it just seems to be diseasing ours the most at the moment, is a fatherless home. And I don't just mean fathers that you're fatherless homes, right? Uh, it's just a single motherhood home. No, I also mean absentee fathers, right? What I mean by that is there are fathers in the home but they are absentee. They are not engaged with their children. Primarily, I mean their sons, and I say that unapologetically. Of course, daughters need their fathers, absolutely, but sons being raised without a prominent male figure in the home are absolutely destructive and dangerous. Where did you come to the conclusion? Where did you find out that this was absolutely truth? And when did you start to dissect this problem and then begin to propagate the resolutions for said problem?
Well, for one, I grew up without my father.
Mm.
So I understand the impact of it. It took a long time to kind of dissect it.
Wow.
And I also had my son at the age of 21. So, relatively young. But then I had to raise my son to become a man, and I didn't even know how to be a man. Um, so, as much as my son was maturing, I was maturing as well. And the only thing I knew was not to be my father. So I just tried to become the father that I wanted. Um, and
Wow.
and I think my son was a big part of it because, I remember someone telling me, your son watches you. And they didn't mean it figuratively, they meant it
Mm.
literally. Like, your son's watching you. And my son has a lot of my mannerisms. My son, he has a lot of respect for me. Um, and I realized how important a father is as I really started understanding my role as a father, in looking at the outcomes for my son. Um, so my book, for example, on the surface, it's called Black Victim, Black Victor.
I was about to
So
go to that.
it's talking about race, but it kind of isn't. I wrote it in a way where I go in and out of talking about race, and then times I'm being very general. Um, and I wanted people to learn from my personal story. When people say, well, the kids, they're just fine, single parents, mom is strong and she's great, and the kids turned out fine.
Mm.
And that's not true. Like, the kids
Nope.
might look fine on the surface, but let me tell you, um, I had to go through therapy. I struggled with a lot of things. It took me a long time to figure out stuff that most young men learn from their fathers early on. Um, it took me a long time. I've said this before. I probably didn't become a man until about 5 years ago. You
Wow.
know, and I'm 38. So it took me a long time to come to that point of being fully confident, fully understanding my role, fully understanding my purpose. Um, and it doesn't mean I was a bad person or anything like that, but it was just the understanding how to be a complete man, and what that person looks like. But as far as single parent homes, you're right. It's not just Black Americans, right? There's two
Yeah.
sides to the stats. You know, are we disproportionately higher? Yes. You can't deny that. But statistically, there are more white Americans who grew up without their fathers than Black Americans.
Facts.
And this is actually an American problem. The United States is number one in single parenthood in the world. And I don't think
Facts.
people understand that. I think Russia is I can't remember if it's Russia number 2 or 3, and the UK, or the UK is number 2 or 3, but they're right behind us. But
Mm.
we're number one in that respect. And so when we look at a lot of the social issues that are happening, when we look at crime, when we look at all these different things, I mean, there is a very frequent common denominator, and it's growing up in single parent homes. You know, for me, I grew up. I'm sorry, I didn't grow up. I was born in Detroit, but my mom left when I was 5 years old. And I'll tell you this: I'm glad she
Wow.
left because I was very impressionable. Right? We moved to rural areas and suburban areas. Crime wasn't bad, but I was very impressionable. I cannot imagine if I stayed in Detroit what I would have gotten into, what would have possibly happened to me. I have no idea, and I don't really want to think about it too hard. Um, but the idea that there are young men who are basically handicapped from birth because they're vulnerable. They are vulnerable. They don't know what they don't know. And the world around them says it's okay. Right. And I think I write about it in my book, that modern feminism avoids responsibility. It just any sort of bad
Ooh.
behavior we would have said before, it just smooths it over, right? It turns, for example, it turns women who make bad decisions as being strong and powerful. And I'm very open in my book. I criticize myself, I criticize my father, and I criticize my mom. And I do that because I think it's important to say that we need to be fair in this conversation. I think far too often we say deadbeat dad, but act like the mother had nothing to do with it. And I use my story as an example. My mother always said she wanted 2 kids, but she never wanted to get married. That was my
Wow.
mom's words. And my mom chose a man who was married. That's my father. So, you're setting us up to never have our father in our lives. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
where's the accountability for the women who make choices like this? Not every woman, not every guy is a deadbeat dad. Some guys are being pulled away from their kids by the court system, right? So every situation is different, but we can't act like it's just one side. It's like where all these fathers go. Some of them are pulled away, right? Some of them are locked up in jail. Some of them are fighting for their kids. Anytime I tweet about fathers being close to their kids and it gets some traction, I get messages from fathers like, I'm fighting to see my kids. My kids don't want to talk to me because their mother did this. Like, there are so many men who are hurting in this country, and regardless of race, most of the people who reach out to me aren't even Black, right? They're saying like, I'm trying to be in my kid's life, but all these hurdles are in my way. And I get really pissed off when we act like fathers are indifferent to their kids, that they're just perfectly okay. Like even my tweet that got some traction as far as my ex having an abortion. In society today, men are just supposed to be indifferent to whether the mother kills their kids or not. And that is a fundamental issue that I have with how everybody is viewing what fatherhood is. And fatherhood has become optional, indifferent, just standing by, whatever you want. Yeah, I don't care. Kids or whatever. Kids aren't my deal. You take care of the kids, right? That's the picture that's being painted. They don't ever talk about the sacrifice. They don't ever talk about the importance of instilling certain things. How about the importance of making sure that our kids are our kids, right? No one wants to talk about that.
Let me address this one issue real quick. I loved everything you just said right there. But I have to revisit this because I think it really underlines the entirety of what it is that you're, kind of outlining here. When you're talking about the double standard, and we love, or some of us love to talk about, or many people love to talk about the fact that the judicial system is very biased in the mother's favor. But let me talk about something else real quick, because I think this is vastly more important than the actual judicial system. I think it's more important that we understand and try to dissect the actual mentality of our society. Because let's be real, people, we can't solve these problems via the judicial system without addressing the societal mental disorder that is America right now. You've got literally, and I retweeted your tweet, or I retweeted or quote. I think I retweeted it, where it's okay for a woman to just have a freaking abortion, and the man has no actual say in it. Where in the opposite, if the man doesn't want the child, and it is a child, their location makes no difference. That is not a factor. It is a human being. It is a child.
Mhm.
Get over it. But the man doesn't have a say in that process. But you're also supposed to pay to the woman who has total control. I mean, the reason I bring that up is not for the specificity of those obvious facts. The reason I bring it up is because we have a culture and we have a society that has, and Adam, I know you know this, dumbed down and deliberately emasculated the man, the husband, the father in the home. You can see it in your TV commercials. You can see it in your movies. The men are absolutely emasculated. What does that result in? First and foremost, it results in lack of respect from the female, lack of respect from the woman, from the wife. But more importantly, it results in a lack of respect from the children. And so, how are we supposed to deal with that? I'm not asking you personally because I think this is a broad aspect that's literally almost impossible to solve outside of encouraging people to critically think and dissolve their cable news network. My God, why is anybody subscribing to cable news? But what you're saying right here is so freaking important because we have fathers being metaphorically neutered by cable news, by media. And it's completely detrimental to our society because fatherless homes, statistically, regardless of any demographic whatsoever, and I hate demographics, I'm a libertarian, uh, actually an anarchist. So I hate the fact that the black community, and you and I talked about this. I was like, well, let's talk about how the single motherhood rate has skyrocketed in the black community versus everyone. That I still hate it. I hate it with all my guts because we are individuals. And so we are responsible. So what are we consuming? How do we resolve the issue of the demasculization of the male and husband father role in our society? Because it's absolutely a killer. And personally, and you can disagree with me on anything you want whatsoever, Adam. I promise. I mean, we'll talk about it. You're amazing. But to me, the demasculization of the man in society and the role of the father, and again, not to beat a dead horse, I only said it once, but in the role of small boys and teenage boys, if this is not course corrected, it will be destructive to America, and there's no way to recover from it. Your thoughts?
Yeah. The one thing I did want to say also is because you were talking about women saying, well, the fathers are important for the girls too. That is true. So
Very.
psychologically, the most important parental figure is the same sex figure for the child, right? That this is from a developmental standpoint, but it's because we're a species that mimics, right? And the most important male figure would be the father because I'm mimicking the male. I'm mimicking how he treats the wife. I'm mimicking his morals, his standards, how he carries himself. I'm mimicking all these different things.
Yeah.
It's different if I try to mimic the mother. Now, there are things that we do pick up from the opposite sex parent. Like there were things because I didn't grow up with my father that I feel that I was more sensitive and I had feminized kind of traits. And I think some of that was from mimicking, I don't necessarily want to say my mother, but maybe females who were close to me or maybe around me to some respect. But there were things that I literally had to unlearn and be more conscious of as I became an adult. Um, and I had to alter. And these were things that most men who grow up with their fathers don't experience. So it was like unlearning patterns, unlearning certain behaviors. One of my biggest things was I was just really sensitive to certain things. I was really sensitive to how people saw me, um, and took certain approaches that um, I would just say like were feminine. Um, and so they were basically what I'm getting at is while the father is the most important figure for the boy, the mother is the most important figure for the daughter. Um,
Mhm.
but the daughter looks at the father figure usually from a sense of how she interacts with authority figures, how she interacts with men, what her expectations are from men in treatment to herself, right? It's very often that you'll see a girl who grows up without her father and she doesn't respect authority. That's one thing that has it's been very very sharp in my mind. Like she doesn't have to turn into anything crazy. She can be a professional for all I know. But there's something about the lack of respect for an authority figure, right? And especially if it's a male authority figure. So when you hear people saying you can't tell me what to do, you can't, it's stuff like that where um and I know you're a libertarian, so maybe this is like a little bit weird, but let's just say
Yeah,
police
you're good.
officers. you know, so police officers, whether you like them or not, they do have some sort of authority. And so when you see like videos that go viral of females or even males, to be honest with you, who have zero respect for an authority figure, and I'm not saying the cop is being crazy and irrational, but I'm just saying like basic commands that are given to the person, like, hey, stand over here, you know, we're trying to figure, and they're just, mouthing off.
Yeah.
And I'm just watching their behavior. There's like zero respect for an authority figure, or even just zero respect for your personal safety, because the person that you're going after has a gun on them, right? It's not a good
Right.
idea.
No,
It's
it's not.
it's a go after that person. So cop or not, like it's not a good idea. So maybe you should, uh, you know, take some caution as to how you're doing it. For these people, they don't even they don't even take caution. They have zero respect for an authority figure. And I look at certain relationship dynamics. Imagine if she has no respect for an authority figure like a police officer. How the fuck is she going to respect you as a man in the house?
Hmm.
And so
Uh,
it's no wonder when we see these families, and there I use family loosely, but it's no wonder when we see relationships fall apart because women see us as optional. They don't respect us, they don't respect our authority, they don't respect our viewpoints, right? And let's say for that girl who grew up without her father, she doesn't know what respecting authority looks like. She doesn't know what respecting a male figure looks like. And her mother may be pumping her head up where you don't need a man. You can do this all by yourself. Men are optional. Men are trash. Blah, 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 blah. We can say all that stuff. No, no problem. Just roll off the tongue. So I think there's something there as far as the treatment of uh, from women towards men, where it's
hmm.
highly misandric, um, and we don't talk enough about it. And one last thing I'll say, you had mentioned, the boys are the ones who are shooting up these places, but guess what? The girls who are growing up without their fathers are the ones who are giving birth to the boys who are shooting up these places,
Hmm.
and that's the part that I think we need to focus on as well.
No, I think you're absolutely correct on that. It is. Um, I don't know the statistics, so I'm not going to pretend or try to portray them. But
Mhm.
I've got an inclination, at at least an inclination, and I would be willing, because I have done the studies um, over the past few years, that it is single mother homes that
Mhm.
are doing this. And so I, I struggle, right, between toggling left and right, whether it is a single mother issue versus a fatherless issue, because personally, biologically and kind of genetically, mothers are very geared toward not one, but a specific subset of avenues to try and foster a child to becoming a very, you successful and productive member of society when it comes to adults. And so I'm not sure that I want to pin. Yeah, yeah. I don't think I want to pin these things on the mother per se.
Yeah.
Maybe in rare instances, of course, but I definitely would absolutely, without question and without hesitation, pin a lot of it on a fatherless home or an absentee father, like I referenced before. Even though the father is in the home, he's not engaged in the child's development, and he's just basically useless other than paying bills.
I think,
But
to be honest with you, and it's hard to get any sort of data around this, but
yeah, it is.
I'm just looking culturally. It is far
Yeah.
more common than people believe as far as who initiates the separation of family. So I'll tell you the one thing. We
Oh,
do
that's a
know
good
that,
fact.
women initiate divorces more than men. It's
By a lot.
overwhelmingly. Yeah.
By a
So
lot.
we know the aspect of divorce where they're in a concrat. I can't even speak.
Oh, you're good.
Where they're under contractual obligation to each other
Right.
theoretically, and they're more willing to disconnect from that relationship through a divorce. So to
Yeah.
me, it's saying if they're willing to do that under that situation, why wouldn't they be willing to do that if they're not divorced? Right? If they're not, I'm sorry, not divorced, not married. Why wouldn't
Yeah, not
they
married.
be willing to do that? And also, it wasn't necessarily a study per se, but it was an examination of mass shooters. This is from a number of years ago. Because I was looking at this information because I wrote an article this year or this past, I know we're in 2023, but in 2022, I wrote an article talking about mass shooters. Um, I can't remember how long it was, but it was basically a long list of mass shooters. And basically, I want to say it was more than, let's say, 70-80% came from some sort of family dysfunctional situation. So whether it was divorce, and it actually gave details, whether it was divorce, abuse, neglect, but it was some sort of family dysfunction that the kids were under. And I think that, like, there's definitely something there that people need to kind of understand. It's not as simple as, well, we just got a divorce and the kids will figure it out and everything will be good. It's like, no, like, this is, from a child's perspective, their world is splitting apart, right?
Yes.
And so half of them is gone. If you're with the mother now, the dad's somewhere else, like, but you spent 10, 12 years, your dad being right here. That is a lot to take under. And it really, really messes with kids. So it's not me saying that people should never get divorced, if it's that bad of a situation, but I do believe that we don't value relationships from the sense of family, but we value relationships from the sense of our feelings and our emotions. So I'm not happy. So I'm going to, remove my kids from the home, move to a different city, create family turmoil because I'm not happy. Nothing bad is necessarily happening to me. I'm just not in love with this person anymore, the same way I was before. And I think we've engaged in a very, very selfish way of approaching relationships, where the kids don't really matter as much as people think they should matter, but the kids don't really matter in that way. It is much more like, I'll give you an example. There was a friend of my sister's when I was growing up. as soon as she went to college, they got a divorce. And they knew they were going to get a divorce, but they said, we do not want to separate from each other while the kids are still here.
Yeah.
And there's something about that I think is a little bit admirable, that they had the child's best interest in mind, where they were cordial enough, because it sounded like she didn't know that it was going to happen. Like I didn't know my parents weren't getting along,
Yeah.
So this was a long time ago, but I see things getting worse in that way, where we don't consider how it impacts the kids. We just think about our feelings, what this person said to me, and you never look for any sort of resolution. I'm worried about all that.
No, and you should be 100%. And I'll piggyback off of that for sure, because I think, and everybody can hate me for this, I don't care. I don't care. I want the truth out there. And the fact of the matter is that your goofy little feelings that you felt at the beginning of your relationship do not translate to a proper marriage and raising of children years later. Love is an action verb, and it does not just apply to your spouse, but also to your children. You have an obligatory duty, 1000%, because love is an action verb, that you are willing to make sacrifices from your own feelings in respect of the other people that are involved in said arrangement. I mean, this is not controversial. It's not whatsoever. You have chosen to spend your life with somebody else. That's a contractual agreement saying there is no circumstance in which I will abandon said agreement lest you do, right? And the less you do is not something that is compromisable. It has to be something major. It isn't because you don't feel the butterflies of love anymore. No, you have a obligatory duty to make sure that you're providing the, as best as you can, accurate application of your agreement. And the kids are the ones that suffer the most. Okay, you're not granted some ridiculously ambiguous, lazy platform of, well, I just don't feel like I'm. No, nobody cares about your feelings. That's not what marriage was or ever is about. It's about you committing to that other person and saying, we are going to work this out no matter what. And we're going to have children, and we're going to help populate this earth. And those children are going to understand that no matter what, we're going to work this out, and we are going to provide the best scenario for the people under our jurisdiction. And look, I'm divorced. Okay. I'm divorced. My pre-Jesus days. I'm a Christian now. So maybe a lot of this is coming from Christian dialect. That is really irrelevant, because it's just common sense. It's just freaking common sense. However, my children deserve the utmost energy and just basic trying to make sure that the relationship between me and my wife works regardless of the disagreements. And I think you're really hammering this home. And I think it's really, really important that we continue to bring this back to pass, and that we as adults have the responsibility to work out between one another as best as we can to make the sacrifices of our own selfish desires on behalf of the other person, so that we can provide an environment for our children. And ultimately, this just replicates or I would say reciprocates within the community for a long way, and we can make good people.
Yeah.
I don't understand the conflict.
I mean, I think we're dealing with ideological conflicts. I think we're dealing with people who are ultimately selfish.
Yes.
You know, we have an ideology that convinces people that being selfish is ideal, and sacrifice is weakness, and duty doesn't even exist among the sexes, right? You know, we don't even have roles for men and women anymore, right? That's what they want to preach. And that there's no fundamental difference between men and women, right? You know, I think there's a lot of miseducation when it comes to interpersonal. Uh, I'm sorry, inter interpersonal dynamics between men and women, relationship dynamics, understanding each other, understand that we communicate. Generally speaking, I'm speaking very general, but generally we speak differently, we see things differently, we approach things differently, and different doesn't mean bad, right? It just means different. And
Right.
I think that we have to find some sort of way um, to discuss it in a healthy and mature way. Um, and I think far too often the people who have the bullhorns aren't mindful enough. I'll use the word mindful. They're not mindful enough to have these conversations. Um, you know, I'll use an example of talking about race. Part of the reason why I'm willing to write and talk about race is because I believe that 95% of the people who write and talk about race do it in a really dumb way. Um,
Completely agree.
you know, it's like cookie cutter. And there are people that, generally speaking, I agree with the context of what they're saying, but they approach it in a really dumb way, right? They approach it in a way that they know will piss off someone who disagrees with them. It's lined in their own ideology, neglecting from other things as well. And I want to talk about it in a smart way, not in a dismissive way, but I want to talk about it in a smart way where I I take awareness of the arguments that they're making, but I'm saying, but this is my opinion. I'm not discrediting you. I'm saying, here's how I see it. And so that's why I don't get a lot of heat from people. I'm not on a lot of people's radars, is because I don't say the dumb stuff that people, let's just say on my side, might say. And,
Right.
you know, and listen, generally speaking, the people that I agree with, they're saying, I'll use a phrase that I think more people need to understand. You can be right and wrong at the same time. And
Absolutely.
and I see that on the political right all the time. You're right, but you're absolutely wrong in your approach, right?
Yes.
And and what I'm trying to do is be right and be right about my approach. And that's the difference, I think, that between myself and other and many people, even people I agree with, is because they're not mindful of that, right? They aren't, like, I'm very focused on the psychology end, and I'm very focused on communication. So everything that I write, I'm consciously aware of how someone might perceive what I'm saying. So I'm not writing to say, you know, I'm not using buzzwords and piss off points to say F this person, that person. I'm very consciously aware that if I use strong terminology, I'm using it towards an idea or a people who possess a bad idea. So I'm not necessarily criticizing this particular person, but I'm criticizing the what is in their head and their actions.
The
And that's a little
mindset.
bit the mindset that's different. And I see so many people attacking the person. It's like, but that person could disappear tomorrow. And guess what? There are a million other people who believe the same bad idea. You should be attacking the idea and not the individual. And I think that is something that is truly missing. And that's why we can't have these conversations about the differences between men and women, the dynamics between men and women, is because from the female side, it's misandric, you know, it's antagonistic, it's angry. From the male side, it's dismissive. right? It's, it's flippant. It's just like, whatever. And we don't actually speak to, we don't speak with each other. We speak at each other. Um, and in the
Mm.
end, to wrap it all up, in the end, our kids are harmed by it. They're not getting the service that they deserve. And then guess what? They grow up to repeat the same bad behavior that they've been watching the adults do for years.
Man, you nailed that. I really wanted to go into some other things, but wow, that was kind of a mic drop moment. So maybe I'll just I'll end this with very one simple question.
Mhm,
Um, how do you think we can reach these communities?
mhm.
And again, this is not demographic specific. How can we combat the destructive information that's being shoved down our throats from all sources on every demographic? Do you have an answer? And I'm not looking for like a perfect answer, right? Because there is no perfect answer. That's freaking impossible. We're
Yeah.
dealing with a machine that is hell bent on the destruction of American society, and I wholeheartedly believe that the very um, basic mechanism of how they're going to do it is destroying the man and the fatherhood of American society, because there's no more or better effective way. There's no more effectual avenue in which you are going to tear down the fiber of a society than making the man, the father, the problem.
Yeah.
What do we do?
So for one, I think the solution lies within Gen Z or beyond. Um, you know, millennials, boomers, Gen X, you know, I'm there's nothing that we won't be able to change anybody's mind. Oftentimes you learn from different things, not because it worked out, but because it failed. And I think we're going to reach a point where it's failing and people are going to look around and saying like, this isn't working. And I actually think that there are some Gen Z young people who are seeing this. There's more curiosity and learning about different things outside of, let's say, feminism. Outside of that, they're willing to hear other perspectives. And I don't think they're given enough credit. They are very socially conscious. Not all of them are woke. And some of them choose to be woke because they just want to do something that feels good, that seems right. And I wrote an article about this where it's very similar to the hippies, right? The hippies were mostly young people who wanted to do something positive. They wanted to end the Vietnam War, uh, peace, love, unity, and all this other stuff.
Amen.
This is the idealism of young people. They want to do something good. It's just that the woke have given them a cookie cutter solution, a way to behave, a way to fix society, and all these different things. And what's the opposite given them? Nothing. They basically say the status quo is good enough. And these people aren't stupid. They're looking around them. Of course, there's issues. But when you have people who are just saying the status quo is fine, the status quo is fine, and they're looking around them, and their perception is there are fires around here and you're not willing to put them out,
Hmm.
that's a problem. They're not going to adapt what you're saying. You have to give them some sort of plan. You have to give them some sort of solution. And oftentimes, I feel like the anti woke are not providing solutions, they're just pointing at the problem. Um, but I believe to fix society, I believe to fix the dynamics between us, Gen Z and beyond are going to look at the failures of their parents and grandparents. They're going to see like that didn't work. I didn't like how this was, and they're going to be more open to information. We're in the information age. We're in the social media age. we have Google, we have all these different things.
Yep.
They have way more access to information today than even when I was a kid, and early access to the internet. So at some point, that information is going to make it to them, and they're going to take that information and compare it to the world around them. And if they're in a failing situation, enough of them are going to say, maybe this isn't working. And maybe they will go more in the traditional route. Maybe they'll just try something different. I don't want to be like my parents who got divorced when I was 10 and I struggled and I suffered X, Y, and Z. Like, they're going to say, maybe this is how I change things. And listen, I've changed personally because of failure. I know tons of people who fail and change. You know, the most successful people in this country have failing businesses, and the next business was a success, and they're making lots of money. So we can obviously learn from our failures as a country. And I think Gen Z or the following generation will be, if it's going to happen relatively soon, it's going to happen between those two generations, in my opinion.
Man, I hope you are right. That's a big black pill, or I'm sorry, that's a big white pill, and I hope it's going to resonate within our communities. Both for me, I'm ethnicity really means nothing for me. I'm half Spanish, half Cajun. I don't care about that stuff. I don't care that you're black. I don't care that anybody is the race that they are. My issue is that we are seeing certain demographics being engaged in very destructive action, and so that's not gonna provide or produce any sort of positive results for our country whatsoever, and that's also a problem for me. It's like, okay, I get it, right? Like I don't care that they're a certain race, but also we must acknowledge and try to discover and dissect why these things are happening. And to me, I really 100% without question, believe that these problems are coming from a fatherless society amongst young men. Of course, daughters need their dads. My daughter, I'm a father of 3. I got 2 daughters and a son. My daughters need me for their guidance. They need that prominent authoritative figure from them, because this is just natural biology. It's natural science. They need that male figure as their leader. But my God, do boys need it way more. And my friend Adam, you are leading the front on this. You are just an absolutely amazing person. I've got your Substack right here. Yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you. Thank you. Because if I had the audience that you do, if I had the following you do, I'd be doing the same damn thing. But you know what? I don't. You do. And so you deserve the airtime for people that may not know who you are, and for the people that may not understand how detrimental this is to our society and how much we need to improve on the fact that fathers, we need them. I'm sorry if that offends you. Actually, I'm not sorry, but it is what it is. And so, Adam, thank you so much for joining the show. You can follow or please subscribe to Adam's Substack at adambcoleman.substack.com. Please follow him on Twitter at wrongspeak. I'm gonna put that up right now. At wrongspeak pub. You are
that's for the publishing company.
Where else would you want people to follow you?
Well, so Wrong Speak Pub is for Wrong Speak Publishing's Twitter account. So we have, just to let people know, we invite people to write articles, different viewpoints to express themselves, amateur writers, maybe inexperienced writers, but people who want to be heard. And so we give them a platform to be heard. So you can check out wrongspeak.substack.com. So you can read these different articles, subscribe to it. If you want to support, feel free to support. We have paid subscriber options as well. But my Twitter account is what you see on screen here, right there.
I got it right here.
Yep.
At Wrong Speak Pub. And
Yep.
yours as well.
Yep.
You're at Adam Coleman. Oh, it's not. Give me 1 second. There we go.
Yeah.
At wrong underspeak. I'm sorry. At wrong underscore speak. For those of you that will be listening later, which will be literally thousands of people. And so I am so happy and very adamant about promoting Adam on this show, because I think, man, your voice is so important. It's something that is sorely needed. And I think that and to be quite honestly, to shove you in the old demographic part that I can just hate so much. The fact of the matter is that our society is literally hinging on these things. They're literally basing some political opinions in the way we operate in this country on certain demographics. So, yes,
Right.
I am glad to have a black man on here to discuss these things, because your demographic needs it. And I want the audience to be broader, and you have that ability. And so, unfortunately, we're going to operate within the means of how society directs itself. And right now, our society, Neanderthal like, is doing that based on freaking skin color and gender, which blows my mind in 2023. Like, this is not what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be basing our intellect and our opinions on what? We're supposed to be doing that on.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
We're supposed
I
to be
cut you
doing
off.
that on intelligence, intelligence and opinion, right? Not based on immutable characteristics. It's just so frustrating to me that we're sitting here having this conversation and still having to fight over whether or not somebody has merit in their opinion over the fact that they're black or brown or white or whatever. It's just maddening to me. It drives me up the wall. Anyway, I will end the rant because I've ranted way too long there at the end. My apologies, Adam. You are the man, dude. Please give us one final shout out of how you want people to follow you, what you want them to do, and how we're supposed to move forward in helping you in your endeavor.
Yeah, definitely check out my articles on human events. I'm a columnist there. I also write for the New York Post. I want to say basically every week now. So yeah, check me on the different publications. Anything that I do, I put it on my Twitter. Twitter is my number one. Facebook has turned into, to play, you got to pay kind of scenario anyway. So definitely check me on Twitter at wrong_speak. And definitely go to my Substack, adambcoleman.substack.com. And if you're interested in articles written by interesting people, regular people, definitely go to wrongspeak.substack.com.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Adam, for coming on the show. Go to his Substack, adambcoleman.substack.com. Check him out immediately. Absolutely fantastic Substack. I checked it out myself and subscribed to it because amazing stuff. Amazing stuff. Adam,
Thank you.
you're very busy. Yeah, you're very welcome. You're a very busy man. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I can't wait to have you back on. And hopefully you'll be writing. I hope right now you're writing a new book. I'm about to buy your old one. And we'll be able to hear from you a lot more here in the very recent future. Do you have plans for buying a book? I got to ask. Or writing a book, sorry.
Yeah, I started writing it a while ago, and then I've been incredibly busy. Um, and
Yeah.
you have to, the writing process for a book, you have to focus a lot. So it was very easy for me to write my book because no one who knew who I was. No one even knew I was writing a book. So it was very freeing and easy. But
Yeah.
now I'm writing for a living. Um,
Yeah.
so I have to get my head completely, on the process. So hopefully
Yeah.
soon.
Yeah. Lots more pressure now that you are under the media microscope. So
Yeah.
prayers to you, brother. You, to me, are an amazing individual, and I'm praying for you. And I hope the best success ever. I hope you reach millions. And thank you for coming on the show, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely incredible. Again, please, I'm going to put it back on the screen. Go check out Adam B. Coleman.substack.com. All right. It is worth your time. It's worth your subscription. I promise you. Follow him on Twitter at WrongSpeakPub. And I'm going to tell you the reason I've brought him on the show is because I found him on Twitter at WrongSpeakPub. Okay. These are important issues. Look, these are some of the most imperative things that we have facing our country today. And I hate the fact that a lot of people find them unsexy or unattractive. It's crazy to me. Crazy to me. What he's talking about, what he's doing, is exactly what the issues of this country in our local communities need to address. And they need to be addressed immediately because we're facing a crisis. And you've heard me say it time and time again. Crisis is the rally cry of the tyrant. So when they talk about COVID, when they talk about mass shootings, and whatever they want to say, and they say crisis, those are rally cries of the tyrant. When we talk about what we're dealing with locally and what we have to do immediately within our local communities, the power that we have to affect change and to do the things that we have to do, I don't know how else to lay it out. I really don't. This has to be done. It has to be done immediately. And I'm telling you right now, if there is a quote unquote crisis, the main crisis is fatherless homes. Yes, some communities are affected worse than others. I'm not concerned with that per se. I'm concerned with that it is an issue. Boys need dads and they need strong fathers and they need them now. We're a little bit over time here. We're 1 hour and 14 minutes. So we will let it go. I have so much to say about this. I'm going to bring Adam back on several times because um, we didn't even scratch the surface of what I wanted to talk about. And so I'll bring him back on many other times. Um, we'll leave it there. Please like the show, share it, subscribe to my YouTube channel, subscribe to the show. The best thing you can do is share it. And we're getting the word out there. This show is growing exponentially every week. It's amazing to me. I've only been doing this a year and a half, and wow, the numbers coming back from Spotify and Anchor.fm are just mind-boggling, mind-boggling. So you guys enjoy the content, and since you do enjoy the content, please share said content and subscribe, and also go to Adam. bcoleman.substack.com. I like saving that right there at the end. I love you very much. I will see you Wednesday, same Cajun time, same Cajun channel, and I am out.